and continue to contribute immensely to the life and vibrancy of this community. And whereas seniors continue to serve as leaders, mentors, volunteers, and important and active members of this community. And whereas their contributions, past and present, warrant appreciation and recognition, and their stories deserve to be told. And whereas the health and well-being of seniors is in the interest of all, and further adds to the health and well-being of the community. And whereas the knowledge and experience seniors pass on to us continues to benefit us all. Therefore, I, Mayor Trevor Birch, do hereby proclaim June 1st to 30th, 2018 as Seniors Month, dated in the City of Woodstock, the 7th day of June, 2018. We have a fancy proclamation that will be on display at the Southgate Center going forward. And so our first order of business is approval of the agenda. We have any disclosure of conflict of interest? Seeing none. Disclosure of new business, matters arising from the minutes. Okay, the minutes of our meeting from May 17th, Councillor Tate.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Lauder, that the minutes of the regular meeting of Woodstock City Council held on May 17th, 2018 be adopted.
Thank you. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? Carries. Unanimous. Any additions to the agenda? Presentations? Our first delegation is John Versavel regarding the 2018 Terry Fox Run coming up in September. Welcome.
To Your Honor, City Councillors, every year on the third Sunday in September, in communities across this nation and around the globe, thousands come together to continue this support for the dream that was Terry Fox's. This year will be no different, as the 38th Terry Fox Run will be held at College Avenue Secondary School on Sunday, September 16, from 10 a.m. till 1 p.m., with registration beginning at 9. It is my honor to address you this evening on behalf of the Lions Club of Woodstock, which is proud to have a role in organizing this important event, and on behalf of all the amazing volunteers with whom success would be unattainable. The legacy of Terry Fox for me can be summed up in just one word. That word is hope. That one element every one of us relies on, that fuels us and sustains us to make dreams come true. But hope alone does not get a deed done or a dream realized. That takes determination and effort. The original Marathon of Hope showed the world the determination, the belief, the hope, and the grit that was Terry Fox. 38 years later, and his example still moves us and calls us to keep that hope alive, not just alive, but to grow it. Over the years, the City of Woodstock and the citizens of Woodstock have proven a great support to the Terry Fox Run. I am here to ask for your support in meeting some of our logistical needs free of charge. Every dollar raised goes directly to the Terry Fox Foundation, so the support you give the run matters and is greatly appreciated. Since its inception, the foundation has raised over $750 million for cancer research. Over the life of the run in this city, the people of Woodstock have contributed over $400,000 to that total. We've been working with the Parks Department, City Works, and the Woodstock Police Auxiliary to determine needs and vet run courses. I thank them for all their support and assistance. I thank Council for its support in the past, and I ask for that support again for this year's run. Speaking for the Lions Club of Woodstock and the community of Terry Fox Run volunteers, I thank you for your attention and consideration. My message is simple. Terry Fox's legacy of hope matters. Your support matters. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions of Council? Councillor Shapton.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just more of a comment through to John. First of all, thank you so much again for your presentation and for your group, for yourself and your group's unbelievable dedication to the to Terry Fox and to making sure this run is not only happening every year, but happening at such an incredibly successful rate. So thank you to you, and just so you know, you will have my full support.
Further questions of council? Seeing none, thank you very much. We'll get to that later. Our next delegation is Robin Butt regarding a proposed poet laureate appointment. Welcome.
Your Worship, councillors, thank you very much. I'm going to draw your attention to the PowerPoint, and I'll go through that with you. I'm proposing that the City of Woodstock proclaim the late Barry Butson its first Poet Laureate, specifically Poet Laureate Emeritus in perpetuity. I'll explain those terms later, but first, who was and is Barry Butson? Poetry, literacy, sports, community. Some knew him as Mr. Butson, their head English teacher at WCI. Second from the left. One WCI student wrote in his yearbook, "Mr. Butson, I had a lot of fun in Writer's Workshop this year, and I also learned so much from you." Here it is. Now that student knows he changed her life, and recently she said this: "I was fortunate enough to have Mr. Barry Butson as an English teacher. It is well known that one teacher can make a difference in the life of a student, and for me, he was that one teacher whose guidance and support had a lasting impact. I went on to do an undergraduate degree in English literature, focusing on creative writing, largely due to his encouragement." Others knew him as Mr. Butson, their head English teacher at Huron Park, from which school he eventually retired. Young athletes had also known him as Coach. He's standing on the left, standing on the right. Do any of you see yourselves? Throughout his life, all knew him also as an avid sportsman. Here's a bit of his collection. A golfer, a sports fan, a sometime disgruntled armchair sports commentator, and a valuable player on the local Masters community baseball team, in this case, front row, fourth from the left. They also knew him as a man with an impish sense of humor. That sign he's holding, by the way, says "No trespassing." And of course, certain special people knew him as a husband and family man, father, and grandfather. And most recently, some knew him as the man in the next chemo bed who could still goof around. He knew what mattered. There he is in the middle. But it's almost a perverse secret that meanwhile, many in the international literary community knew the late Barry Butson, born and raised in Stratford, citizen of Woodstock, as a poet, already published in many international literary journals that eventually would include all of these, some many times over. These are in France, Australia, Britain, the US, Canada. These are the names of literary journals he was published in. Beginning with his retirement from Huron Park, he knuckled down to collecting his poems into books. Yet he has been nearly completely unknown and uncelebrated in this city, where he lived until January of this year, when unfortunately he passed away. It was after he retired from Huron Park that readers in the professional writing community came to know Barry Butson for a wonderful new reason. He won our country's prestigious National Poetry Prize, the Milton Acorn People's Poetry Award. This is his awards presentation. Butson won for his first full poetry book out of the gate. Now, so many books later, Readers know him as a former journalist, a memoirist, and a true poet of southwestern Ontario. His works often set in the areas of Stratford, Woodstock, and Embro. Yet his appeal is unlimited. Here's what Welsh poet John Barney had to say of Barry Butson's poetry. There is a Wordsworthian quality. The poems deal with heroic acts of survival of ordinary people who won't be remembered, who win little, yet who struggle on, like so many of the characters in Wordsworth's early poems, but known by the poet and celebrated and memorialized. A master of the North American colloquial conversational style, should be on the poetry list of one of Canada's leading publishing houses. He never was. Blame not his skill, but the times. Another famous Canadian poet, Don Coles, also of Woodstock, said this: Butson's poems will outlast most of whatever else the week may bring you, or the month, maybe longer. This poet offers us thoughts familiar and at the same time unexpected, trustable and yet so rarely spoken aloud. Poet and editor Gary Meadows said this: variety and form and subject matter, Shakespearean bittersweet sensibility, linger in your mouth but Sonian ending, also literary plums for aficionados. The Protean Butson persona is engaging. Another critic and editor said this: might well be Canada's king of the blue-collar poets because of that swaggering, down-to-earth style of writing that focuses on life on the road, lovers on trains, the lonely people in cars or telephone booths, the salesmen, the suicides, the factory worker, the painters, the athletes, life as it's tasted in the large working-class family where adventure is glorying in the everyday. Or this about his third collection of later life poems. In what is perhaps his sunniest collection, Butson unveils the contentment and amazement that a certain number of years and affinity for the quiet life sometimes bestow. But let's listen to a few words from the poet himself. My 4 aunts. My aunts come to the party like volcanoes, 1 with husband still, 3 alone. Widows, they have seen many snows, been many things. Still they laugh, joke, and gossip like the farm girls they once were, wearing white ribbons in hair, dark or red, approaching their 90s or past it, tresses still lustrous. I see passion in their hands, the way they pick up knives and playing cards. Do not challenge them. They are big women, statuesque still, and all keep a house, go out to movies, read roaring novels, play euchre like farmers, look through you like you were that youngest kid of their sisters who was so picky about his food, wouldn't mix his peas and carrots or try the burgundy blood of beets. Their lives flow like hot lava, dormant now, but still dangerous. My aunts come to the party smoking. Or this poem called Brothers. Nice to sit with a guy you've known for 70 years, outside the North Jetty Fish Camp in Nokomis, Florida, drinking cans of PBR and watching for dolphins to roll past as you talk about common interests. The two of you often never spoke for years at a time, one insult or another being enough to trigger that. But now you are too old to waste time in silence and know better how not to set the other off. And the thing is, 2 brothers on a bench do not want to be disturbed. They've already missed too much of each other. As a professional writer myself, there are so many more Butson poems that I could draw your attention to. Woodstock Nocturne, My Dad at the Kitchen Table, Men Who Wait in Cars, Shopping Mall Epiphany, Butter Tarts, Striking Out the Coach, Still Life of an Aging Athlete, Pollywogs, Thimble Cakes, Canoeing with Your Wife, The Vance Suite, How Do You Get to Fabric Land, Tiny Light You Provide. I could go on and on. Barry Butson became known and admired long ago in many places outside our city. He kept quietly on, doing what he did, writing poems about this everyday world, about life here, our lives, publishing them, inspiring others, writing more. Our city has done little until now to claim or celebrate this poet and his legacy. Now he has passed away. Sometimes these things happen. Sometimes we're not in charge of timing, no matter how much we may want to be. But it's my hope that you'll see clear to rectifying our collective oversight. This evening, I ask your worship and councillors to acknowledge the lifetime offerings of someone who spent the latter 2/3 of his life in our town, an important literary figure in this province, in this country, and for many readers and writers in significant parts of the farther-flung English-speaking world. Now, what is a poet laureate emeritus, and how much will it cost the city? First of all, it will cost this much. As for a definition, the poet laureate is the city's literary ambassador and advocate for poetry, language, and the arts. He or she attends events across the city to promote and attract people to the literary arts. The poet is supposed to concentrate on their own work and to share that with their community. Often a poet laureate will create a legacy project during their term. A poet laureate helps promote his or her community as well as enriches the lives of its citizens. Here are a few of the Ontario cities and communities that already have appointed poets laureate. So what about the emeritus part? This is an unusual designation made necessary by Barry's passing. In consultation with John B. Lee, long-standing poet laureate of the city of Brantford and of Norfolk County, we concluded that both procedurally and practically, Barry Butson's suitability for the appointment and his suitability as a distinguished catalyst for celebrating literacy, writing, culture, and reading in Woodstock and Oxford remain as strong as ever. In fact, by the terms of the poet laureate definition, through his books and teaching, Butson's legacy project is arguably already created and of fairly staggering magnitude for any poet laureate. Now it simply remains for us to embrace him. Mr. Butson deserves ongoing celebration and recognition. Writers of Butson's high caliber simply don't take root in a small community often, perhaps once or twice in a century. Citizens of Woodstock and Oxford County deserve to know about him for the sake of the pleasure, inspiration, and encouragement his work can bring to their own literacy, their own reading, writing, thinking, creating, being. As a bonus, Mr. Butson's family have committed to being involved on his behalf as readers who would present appropriate selections from his body of work at civic ceremonies and events. And none of this prevents the city from appointing a living poet laureate down the road should such a thing become appropriate. That poet's duties would simply include presenting selections from Barry's work along with their own when called upon. I would also suggest the creation of a city web link devoted to a biography of the poet, rundowns of his books, and photos of the late poet and his activities in life. And given that some of Butson's family members turn out to be crack fundraisers, perhaps someday sponsoring an annual festival of poetry readings in his honor isn't an impossible stretch. For now, I'll leave you with this. Barry Butson's final lines, written by the hand of a man who was a poet to the last. Please take this opportunity. Celebrate writing, reading, literacy, and all creativity here. They're ours, as Barry Butson was ours. Celebrate what our community can bring forth. Please proclaim Barry Butson formally to be Woodstock's poet as well. He was anyway. We might as well cement our luck. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Questions of council, and we'll start with Councillor Accioni.
Thank you, Your Worship. Let me start off by saying thank you.
You're welcome.
I proudly to call him a teacher, a coach.
Great.
He was always one of the first in the change rooms to start with his speeches, of course. I'll have a lot of memories.
Nice.
I was very disappointed when I heard that, God rest his soul, that he passed. So thank you for your presentation. Thank you for bringing back so many good memories of the man I remember.
Yes. I was hoping that some here would have maybe had him as a teacher.
Yeah. Absolutely did.
Great, great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Further questions of council? Seeing none, thank you very much. We'll deal with that a little later. Next item on the agenda, we have the United Way, and tonight we have Shauna Powell and Giselle Lafla, sorry for the pronunciation, United Way, regarding the 447 Hunter Street lease.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Birch, members of council, staff, guests. I'm Shauna Powell. I am the board president of the United Way Oxford. Giselle Lutfall, no, I can't do it. Lutfall, who is our vice president and awesome, and we have some other board members in our audience. Although we are very grateful that you've invited us here tonight, we really don't want to be here. You will appreciate the steps we've taken. We haven't taken lightly. Unfortunately, we didn't feel we had any other alternatives where to go from here. I've been heavily involved with the United Way for over 17 years in Oxford. As an accountant, one of the reasons I believe in the United Way is because they are so good with their finances. They are excellent stewards of our community's generosity. They are fiscally responsible, utilizing donor dollars in the best way possible. All our board members are involved with the United Way because we believe in the work that they do, and we're very proud of the organization as it is. In many ways, our goals of building a stronger, healthier community mirror those of yours on council. I was on the board when we were approached early 2014 to see if we'd be interested in 447 Hunter Street. We were so excited. What a great fit. For us, the location was perfect. And for you, this beautiful building had been sitting empty for over 3 years, and it was falling into disrepair. So we thought by working together, we would create a win-win situation to enhance the building for us and all of our partners. And we want you to know we love our home. I want to say up front that although we are a charity, we are not here looking for special treatment. We are not looking for a handout. We are here to ask for your guidance. Where do we go from here? In our correspondence, we identified some of the lease obligations that have not been met by the city. The leaking roof and the problems associated with that are the largest issue. When we first moved in, it looked like everything was perfect and the leak was fixed, and first rainfall, unfortunately, we found out it wasn't. Roof repair work is not easy, and it can take time. We appreciate we are not your #1 priority, nor should we be. We are a paying customer. We appreciate that an old building requires patience. We've been waiting 4 years. That takes a lot of patience. During this time, our board has been actively involved. Due to the leakages before and during our tenancy, we became concerned about the air quality within the building, and we pushed to have mold testing done. Poor air quality is not great for our staff, and we didn't want to have any problems with that. So we pushed, we fought, and we got the testing done, which was awesome. And 18 months ago, the mold was removed from the building. We heard from a council member that they were unaware that we had problems with our building, and that's good news for you guys. Unfortunately, our board has been very aware with the problems that we've had with the building, and we're sorry now to pass that on to you. From the beginning, we had a vision for a nonprofit service center. In our negotiations, we were clear that we could not afford that lease, and we would have to sublease some of that space. Our lease reflects that. As of day one, we had 2 subtenants. We charge an amount based upon the square footage that they occupy. Unlike the rent we pay the city, our rate to tenants include reception service, boardroom, meeting room access, internet, phone service, fire, security alarm service, storage, etc. Our subleases are designed to help us recoup a portion of those costs. They contribute to the overall operating and maintenance costs. We provide our tenants an affordable option, helping them keep their costs minimized. We do not make a profit from subleasing. By no way do we make a profit, and we're very happy to give you an accounting of our building expenses and revenue.
We believe that both the City and United Way hire professional staff to run our organizations. As directors, we only get involved in operational matters when necessary. In this case, I personally have been involved for some time in an attempt to resolve outstanding issues and to try to move us forward. We entered into a lease in good faith and understood that it was mutually beneficial. Much of the work that the city was obliged to complete by June 1st, 2014 was not done. Because it wasn't completed, United Way was unable to sublease the space that we have been paying for. And that has created a financial frustration for our charity, resulting in having less money to invest in our community work. Based on our other leases, we have calculated that we could have had an additional $27,000 to offset our occupancy costs had we had 3.5 years of a rental income. That money could and should have been invested in the individuals and families in our community that need assistance, many of those who are citizens of Woodstock, excuse me. You will be happy to know that the final repair work related to the roof was completed a few weeks ago, and we have 2 new tenants moving in this month. We would like your governance and wisdom to help guide a resolution in a positive and responsive manner for the remainder of our tenancy. We seek 2 outcomes from our delegation this evening. They are, how can we work together going forward to have a positive landlord-tenant relationship that includes reasonable responses to issues in an efficient, effective, and timely manner that is not burdensome to both of our staff? And we'd like to have our future lease rates reduced to reflect the unrealized revenue that we reasonably anticipated but could not receive. Both the city and United Way entered into this lease because it was a win-win situation. We want to see that continue. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you. Questions of council? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And next presentation, we have Randy Peltz for future Oxford partnership update. And it looks like we also have anyone else coming up, or just you?
Yes, Brian
Nope.
Smith.
Brian Smith and Rick Cox. Welcome.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure being here this evening. Our 15 minutes will be devoted to simply bringing council up to date on where we are with the future sustainability plan, future Oxford sustainability plan. Again, my name is Randy Peltz. I'm the chair of the Future Oxford Partnership. The partnership is a volunteer team of community members assembled from across Oxford County to move the sustainability plan forward on your behalf. So with that at hand, fair enough. We thought we'd provide an overview of where we're headed tonight. With the main takeaway is that there's lots happening behind the scenes and a lot of work on behalf of many, many people throughout Oxford County. We thought we'd touch on highlights of the most recent Community Wellbeing Report, an amazing comparative report to Southwestern Ontario, and Canada, and the Economy Partnership Report, which is brand new, hot off the press, as well as the upcoming Zero Poverty Report. If we step back for a moment, the plan that you adopted several years ago had 3 intertwining pillars, 3 very highly interdependent pillars: the economy, a vibrant community, and a responsible environment, and together that creates well-being and life satisfaction in Oxford County. And illustrative of that is the following, if we can get this to work. Anyway, I won't touch it. think I need to get back to. I need to close that. I'll help you.
Thank you.
That's it. And that takes us to the next slide.
There we go, gang.
There we go. You can see that we're proceeding with the plan extremely well, extremely well. In any case, I just want to remind you of what was adopted several years ago and that we are moving forward very steadily on that. Having said that, we'll deal with the community well-being report very quickly, and with the key question always being, what is the ultimate purpose of a community? A province or a country, does it exist only for the sake of commerce and economy, or is it founded on a much broader vision where families and communities can prosper? About a year and a half ago, 2 reports were published, and those 3 reports were published as a main takeaway from here. One was the general attributes of Oxford County. The second was selected attributes of Oxford County, such as life satisfaction, engagement and sense of belongingness, accessibility to childcare, healthcare, quality of work-life balance, health behaviors and environmental responsibility. That was also attached with an appendum of comments by Oxford County residents that were rich in insight and want to move forward on creating one of the best counties in the province. We published those results, and more than 100 plus agencies attended an event that looked at those results, asked questions, and took those same attributes back to their staff and their boards in an attempt to align what the reports were telling us with their own strategic plans. That brings us to the next report, which was our most recent report, which, again, extremely good read and easy read. And I'll turn it over to Rick Cox.
Thank you, Randy. Council members, Mayor, members of the gallery. The most recent report related to the community well-being work we've been doing is a profile that compares Oxford County and the findings of the study to our surrounding area in southwestern Ontario, to all of Ontario, and to Canada. One of the strengths of the Canadian Index of Wellbeing model that we use is that it's being used by other jurisdictions, which gives us great comparator information. And this report is a really easy read too, so it's not your standard academic report. The others were great. This one's even better in terms of being easy to read and absorb. I encourage you to look for it on the Future Oxford website. Some of the main findings won't be any surprise. Some of them may be surprisingly interesting to you, but as you can imagine, our demographics in Oxford County are both younger and older than our counterparts. We have many of our middle cohort leaving Oxford County, which leaves us proportionally higher at either end of the spectrum. We also are compared, we also feel like we belong to tight-knit communities. We have a lower educational, higher education component in our county. We are pro-environment more so than others. We like our healthcare system, although we have a lot of concerns about it. Our libraries are particularly strong in our communities, and our living standards are high relative to some of our counterparts. We also have a slightly higher percentage of residents in Oxford County reporting an overall higher level of life satisfaction than other parts of southwestern Ontario and also in Ontario, but compared with our counterparts nationwide, we're slightly lower. Despite some of the challenges that were identified in our well-being as a county, in general, residents do appear to be celebrating our county's strengths and managing our challenges.
So carrying forward on the good news, most recently we've published the Working Together to Build a Stronger Workforce and Grow Economic Prosperity in Oxford. This particular report offers a template of possibilities as we move forward and recognizes also the need for environmental stewardship, social wellness, and economic prosperity are all intertwined. with that at hand, the report is a reflection and a combination of converging strategic plans and initiatives by the following groups: Future Oxford, the following plans: Future Oxford Sustainability Plan. It derives as well actions from the Oxford Labour Force Development Strategy, the Oxford Newcomer Strategy, the Local Employment Planning Council, and current statistical metrics. The Oxford Workforce Development Partnership, given their mandate, has taken stewardship of the economic pillar. And the report includes the following areas of focus. Very at a high level, it includes actions for increased collaboration, such as business-to-business communications platforms, actions for workforce alignment across Oxford County, actions for attracting skilled talent, actions for reducing barriers to employment, and we move on to the next pillar and the upcoming report.
So the newest piece of this in Work in Progress is the Zero Poverty Report, which is coming forward, and action around that is coming forward. It was initiated, in fact, by Operation Sharing, saying we've got to do something about food insecurity here in town and in other parts of Oxford County, and bringing in some experts who said you'll never solve food insecurity all the while people live in poverty. It seems so obvious, but experts had to tell us that. So all of those groups that were present to hear those things, from a researcher out of London and a researcher from Alberta, then decided that that is what has to be done, and the goal is to eliminate poverty, which can be done through a number of means, and those means are in the areas of focus. So one of the things that you can do to eliminate poverty is you can improve housing, and affordable housing is one of the great challenges right now, actually all over this province, but in Woodstock and in Oxford County. You can look at income, and there are forthcoming work that you will see about basic income, living wage, and there's the highly controversial minimum wage discussion that's happened. There's the area of understanding as well, understanding that nobody chooses poverty deliberately, that there are complex factors that work on people that bring them to that point, and that those people who we would describe as living in poverty, in many cases are also living 1, 2, or 3 jobs to try to get themselves and their children out of poverty. And that's a very tough position to be in. So that leads us then to the next portion, which is that whole sense of belonging. And we know that belonging in Oxford County is very neighborly. People believe that they belong in a neighborhood. They don't believe that they belong in the county. If you go out of the bounds of Woodstock, people will say, I belong in Harrington. I belong in Medina. I belong in these small communities. So our sense of community is very close. It's that notion that you know 150 people very closely and you care for them. So that factor is a really big one, and is one of the things that we know that if somebody is socially excluded in that community, that they're going to find themselves in poverty because they don't have the networks that would get them into employment and housing and those other things that are necessary. The political action is not describing what I hope you've already done today, but rather is advocacy at this level with all other government levels that they become partners in eliminating poverty. So we know that those things are necessary, and we know that there's work in progress on them. There's a shift in terms of perceptions. We know that if you get a group of people who are in poverty and who live in that they frequently put themselves down and each other down, and that problematic relationship with each other and themselves does not help bring them out of poverty. We know that we need a dialogue and a discussion about why poverty exists and what we can do about it, and we know that there's some change to be done, and that transformational change will be solutions to address not just the symptoms of poverty, but to get at the causes of it. So for instance, I came this evening from the Supper Club. I know that Bullwinkle's here offers great meals to people. That's a wonderful, wonderful bandage, all the while people are in poverty. And you're not going to tear that bandage off all the while the wound is still there, but we need to deal with the cause so that at some point we could work ourselves out of jobs in doing those kinds of wonderful things. And I'll turn you back to Randy for, I'll go back one slide if I know how to do that. No, I don't know how to do that. This one? That's fine. Previous. That's the second from previous. Okay. All right. I'll get reading glasses one day. Thanks. Sorry, Randy.
Again, very quickly, we're pleased to present that the fact, again, that we are moving forward on your behalf, working as volunteers across Oxford County and in Woodstock. We will be presenting to all councils. Some of those dates have changed. My apologies, the slide needs to be updated. But we will take the show on the road to all councils by the middle of July. Thank you so very much for tonight. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Questions of council? Councillor Lauder.
Okay, you got it. Just through the mayor to your group, I just want to thank you for all the work that you have done so far, and we understand there's a lot more to do, and I just wish you well in attacking this poverty issue that we know that is in our county. A lot of us don't want to admit it, but it is here, and so thank you very much for this presentation.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Further questions of council? Seeing none, thank you very much. And now we will start with our, we'll start with the first one. Councillor Tate.
Make a motion that the request received from the Lions Club of Woodstock regarding in-kind support from various city departments for the Terry Fox Run on September 16th, 2018 be approved.
And a seconder, Councillor Accioni. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carries, unanimous. And our next one on the proposed poet laureate appointment, Councillor Lauder, or Councillor Accioni. Okay.
Thank you, Your Worship. Move that Woodstock City Council direct staff to prepare a bylaw appointing the late Barry Butson as Woodstock's poet laureate.
Seconded by Councillor Lauder. Discussion? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? Carries, unanimous. Next item on the agenda, United Way, 447 Hunter Street. Councillor Shapton.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself that Woodstock City Council advise United Way Oxford to proceed with dispute resolution in accordance with Section 20, arbitration as established in the lease agreement of 447 Hunter Street between the City of Woodstock and the United Way of Oxford.
Thank you. A seconder, Councillor Petter. Discussion? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? Carries, unanimous. Next item on the agenda is the update from Future Oxford Partnership. Councillor Lauder.
I'll move that Woodstock City Council receive the presentation from Future Oxford Partnership as information.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Tate. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carries, unanimous. And we have no planning reports. Next item is consideration of correspondence. And we have a request for the street closure for the annual Street Fest in 2018. Councillor Tate.
Woodstock City Council refer the request for temporary closure of streets for the BIA's annual Street Fest to the bylaw section of the meeting.
And seconded by Councillor Petter. Discussion? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? Carries, unanimous. And our next item, this is regarding an application for the Main Street Initiative Fund with AMO. And if we're successful, we might be able to do a little extra work to remove some of those pesky paving stones on our Dundas. Councillor Accioni.
Thank you, Your Worship. Move that Woodstock City Council direct staff to advise AMO that the Main Street revitalization funding will be applied to the paving stone replacement project in the downtown core, and further that the 2018 revenue fund budget be amended accordingly, and further that the mayor and clerk are authorized to sign the agreement with AMO, and that the necessary bylaw be read.
Thank you. And the seconder, Councillor Shapton. Discussion? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? Carries, unanimous. Let's hope we get approval. Next item on the agenda, proposed increase for budgets for land sales. Councillor Petter.
I move that Woodstock City Council approves increasing the budgets for 0201-69309-0000, sale of industrial land, and 0801-84231-0712, provision for industrial land reserve fund to $5 million. And further that the budgets for 1300-69308-000, sale of city-owned property, and O200-71319 and 4 zeros. Provision for reserve for capital projects, each be increased by $499,000, and further that the revenue fund budget be amended accordingly.
Thank you. And the seconder, Councillor Shapton. Discussion? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All in favor? Carries. Unanimous. This is good news for the city to increase the sale of land for new items coming. Next item is regarding potential funding for the rail lines on the high tonnage. Councillor Lauder.
I'll move that Woodstock City Council request the Ministry of Finance to consider the high tonnage rate for railway right-of-way properties in the city of Woodstock that meet the high tonnage threshold.
Thank you. And the seconder, Councillor Tate. Discussion? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? Carries. Unanimous. Next item is the OSIF application. We've applied for so many years in a row and never received funding, but we're always diligent in reapplying. Councillor Tate.
Make a motion that Woodstock City Council authorizes the submission of an application for top-up funding from the OCIF in the amount of $576,000 for project 1090 Huron Street.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Shapton. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carries. Unanimous. Next item on the agenda is the garbage and recycling. Councillor Shapton.
Thank you, Worship. Moved by myself, the Woodstock City Council direct staff to continue to provide curbside garbage, recycling, and bulk item collection with city forces and continue with the existing waste management methodology. And further, that City Council direct staff to report back to Council on the options to provide more frequent curbside recycling collection so that it can be presented as an addition to base budget during the 2019 revenue budget deliberations. And further, that City Council direct staff to provide the results of the waste management RFP to county staff and continue discussions with county staff to develop a mutually satisfactory agreement.
Thank you. And a seconder, Councillor Tate. Discussion? Councillor Shapton.
Thank you, Worship. I'm just wondering if Mr. DeHaan could give us a brief overview of the report, please.
Your Worship, through the Councillor. Yes, as directed by Council, staff put out an RFP to provide for contractors to offer curbside collection of garbage and recyclable material and processing of that material, the recyclable material also. We had 5 bids come in. All of the bids were more expensive than our current system and for curbside collection. And unfortunately, though, although we asked for weekly recycling collection, 3 of the bids did not provide that. So we took those 3 bids out when we compared it then to the system costs for providing weekly recycling. So with the remaining 2, those costs then also ended up being higher than the estimated cost for 2 of the options that we presented to Council earlier for weekly recycling also.
Councillor Shapton.
Thank you, Worship. Just more of a comment than anything. I just want to thank Mr. DeHaan for a phenomenal report. I was more than pleased to see this come back, knowing that our Works Department and garbage collection people do a great job. And more than anything, I know this has been going on for quite some time to have a better understanding of our costs compared to outsourcing. So it's always great to see that the city is providing the best option for our citizens.
Further discussion? I would add we've had much discussion over the past few years, especially with County Council regarding this. And just as a point of clarification, those bids did come in from the existing county contractors, and they did come in higher than the city forces. So some of the information that had been provided by County Council in the form of budget deliberations and motions that have been made and things that have made the press over the past year or more, we are seeing the results. So I look forward to discussing this again at County Council with Councillors Tate and Councillors Talbot. So any further discussion? You've heard them. Oh, Councillor Tate.
Just so Council's aware, through the chair, Mayor Birch has made them quite aware at the county that the numbers that they were giving us were not correct. So we're hoping that everybody realizes that they weren't correct.
Thank you. We've heard the motion. All those in favor? Carries. Unanimous. And our next one is also on waste management in the future due to the provincial changes to legislation. Councillor Petter.
I move that Woodstock City Council direct staff to investigate options for the city to meet the requirement for collection of food and organic waste by 2025 and report back to council.
Thank you. And a seconder, Councillor Accioni. Discussion? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? Carries. Unanimous. Next item on the agenda is a great news story. We saw budgets over the last few years regarding the Fair Assistance Program, where we help individuals in the community, and this council has been very proactive and increased the amount of funding coming from our slots revenue. And even with that increase, we have now run out of money partway through the year. So another good news story, and this is funded by slots revenue. Councillor Shapton.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself that Woodstock City Council approves increasing the budget for 0702-83405-0314 Rec Program Fair Fee Assistance to $30,000, with the additional $15,000 to be financed from the Slot Machine Revenue Fund, Reserve Fund, sorry.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Accioni. Discussion? Councillor Lauder.
Just a comment, and just as the gentleman were speaking the poverty in our city even, and it's good news, bad news kind of, in that we have to increase it, but it's great that we are able to increase it, and that people are using it, and we are helping people that's in need. So I really appreciate this.
Further discussion? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? Carries. Unanimous. The next item is regarding our pilot study for the walking track at Cowan Park. Councillor Accioni.
Moved by myself, the Woodstock City Council approve the reopening of the Cowan Park walking track from October 29, 2018 to March 2019 as a pilot study, and further that Woodstock City Council approves an amendment to Municipal Code Chapter 330 to add walking track fees for Cowan Park, and that the necessary bylaw be read.
Thank you. And the seconder, Councillor Lauder. Discussion? Councillor Lauder.
Keeps going on. Through to Mr. Connors, could you speak to this, because I know there's a lot of people talking about the walking track.
Your Worship, through to the councillor's question. What this will do if it passes is it will give us a definite date when the walking track will reopen. The city, in taking over and basically rescuing the Cowan Park, decided to open it Monday to Friday for approximately 5 to 10 p.m. During the major rental groups only. What we looked at here was a plan that would allow people to use the walking track when it was most needed before the winter. This is a temporary plan. It really is just kind of a Band-Aid or a bridge pilot program to see how much it gets used during that time, and also can the city afford it. And that will bridge us to the next budgetary period, where the council of the time can determine what to do to go forward. But what it does is provides alternatives for people using the walking track to be able to use alternative walking areas, both inside and outside, during the year, like as of now, and then in late October to go back and use the walking track when the snow and ice starts to take place.
Thank you for that. And I know there's a lot of people that have been upset about it, and I had people the other day just again commenting on it, and they would like it all year round. I try to tell them that it's about the money right now. So thanks for that information, and thank you for doing this report.
Thank you. Councillor Accioni.
Thank you, Your Worship. We'll start off by saying thank you, Brian Connors, and your entire team for putting this together. I know we kind of threw it at you on top of Cowan Park and everything else that's going on. You've had to find resources and staff and everything else. So thank you. I too have had, obviously like everybody else, dozens of people. Every time I go to a grocery store, I'm being approached by someone as well. So I appreciate their patience. I'll say that again. I hope people do understand this is let's call it a Band-Aid, because that was used earlier. For right now, we are doing our best with what we have. Thank you for making this work. Let's try it out as a pilot, and I certainly agree that let's see what it takes to keep this going. So thank you.
Councillor Petter.
Through the mayor to Mr. Connors, under your report, the bylaw amendment for the fees, can you just explain for the people that might be listening that you've got a 1-week membership, a 1-month membership, and a 3-month membership? Will there be a full year of walking track, meaning the months that are open?
Your Worship, through to the councillor's question. Right now, we will plan, if this goes forward, to offer a 6th and a 1 year. But at this point in time, because it's a pilot, we're not going past 6 months. That would be for a new fiscal cycle to come in. And as this report indicates, that if there isn't additional dollars going towards Cowan to keep it open, it won't be open. So that to have a bylaw amendment that has a 6th and 1 year when it may not be open that long would not be good to sell those memberships.
Further discussion, Councillor Shapton.
Thank you, Worship. Just more of a comment, but I also want to make it clear that this facility has only been back in our care since Monday. So in 4 days, Mr. Connors and his team have been very diligent to put all of this together to ensure that it's staying open at least some hours, and they're doing the best they can. Give us some time, and I've had a lot of discussions with people in the community with why we aren't doing everything at once. Well, the reason is because this was thrown at us. This was not part of the plan, and it happened outside of a budget cycle. So understanding that the funds we have created came from reserves and other places that we could get them until we can get to the next budget cycle. So I want to say a humongous thank you to Mr. Connors and his team, because what was thrown at them in the middle of all this is to get this facility back on track. So from what I can tell, because it happens to be in my backyard, you're doing a great job. So congratulations on the first 4 days.
Further discussion? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? Carries. Unanimous. Next up, we have some great new investments coming downtown. We'll start with 495 Dundas. Councillor Tate.
Move that Woodstock City Council approve the Community Improvement Plan application for 495 Dundas Street, and the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the necessary agreements, and further that the approved funds be taken from the downtown reserve for the project.
Thank you. And a seconder, Councillor Accioni. Discussion? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? Carries. Unanimous. Next item is for 513 to 515 Dundas Street. Councillor Accioni.
Moved by myself that Woodstock City Council approve the Community Improvement Plan application for 513, 515 Dundas Street, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the necessary agreements, and further that the approved funds be taken from the downtown reserve for the project.
Thank you. And a seconder, Councillor Shapton. Discussion? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? Carries. Unanimous. Next item on the agenda is for 583 Dundas Street. Councillor Shapton.
Sorry, give me a sec here. My computer just... there we go. That Woodstock City Council approve the Community Improvement Plan application for 583 Dundas Street, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the necessary agreements, and further that the approved funds be taken from the downtown reserve for these projects.
Thank you. And a seconder, Councillor Petter. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carries. Unanimous. Next item on the agenda is regarding the reallocation of funding lines within our business support services. Councillor Shapton.
Moved by myself that Woodstock City Council authorize the transfer of $10,000 from account 0802-84236-0393, contract service, $3,000 from account 0802-84236-645, program delivery, $8,000 from 0802 84238-0393 program trainer and $5,000 from account 0802-84238-0497 marketing to account 0802-84236-0103 small business center part-time and associated benefit accounts to establish a contracted employment position and hire one full-time business advisor between August 1st until December 31st, 2018.
Thank you, and seconded by Councillor Accioni. Discussion? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? Carries. And next up, we have our Joint Compliance Audit Committee, and we hope we don't have to use their services, and we haven't had to use them much in the past, if I recall, ever. Councillor Lauder.
I'll move that Woodstock City Council approve the formation of a joint compliance audit committee with other Oxford County municipalities, and further that City Council appoint the following members to sit on the joint compliance audit committee: David Hodgson, Brenda Yonker, David Morris, Keith Reibling, and Carol Simmons. And further that City Council approve the required changes to Municipal Code Chapter 45 Compliance Audit Committee and the necessary bylaw be read.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Tate. Discussion? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? Carries. Next item on the agenda is our employee relations. Councillor Tate.
I move that Woodstock City Council authorize the mayor and clerk to sign the 2018-2020 QP Local 1146 inside and part-time unit collective agreement.
Thank you. And the seconder, Councillor Shapton. Discussion? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? Carries. Unanimous. And next item on the agenda is notice of motion. Councillor Shapton.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, whereas the intersection of Halifax Road and Springbank Avenue is presently a two-way stop on Halifax Road, and whereas there is increasing traffic volumes and no designated pedestrian crossing, and whereas there has been 4 motor vehicle collisions at this intersection, and whereas the recent completion of Ludington Park will result in increasing numbers of children and pedestrian traffic, therefore be it resolved that Woodstock City Council direct staff to serve public notice in accordance with Municipal Code Chapter 180 of the potential installation of traffic calming and pedestrian crossing safety measures at this intersection, and further that staff be directed to report to City Council with the results of the public consultation.
Thank you. And our next item is bylaws.
Moved by myself.
Councillor Tate.
Sorry. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Lauder, that the following bylaws be given first and second reading: 9205-18, 9206-18, 9207-18, 9208-18, and 9209-18.
Thank you. You've heard the motion. All those in favor? Carries. Unanimous. And Councillor Tate.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Lauder, that the following bylaws be given third and final reading: 9205-18, inclusive to 9209-18.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor? Carries. And tonight we will start with Councillor Tate.
And I'm going to pass because the election is on and I'd like to go home.
Councillor Accioni.
Thank you very much. I'll be brief. Just want to remind everybody Relay for Life is going on tomorrow night. That if you're not attending or not able to attend, please be generous to a team or someone that is. And What's on Woodstock now is out with your summer snapshot out there. So take a look. All the big events. Thanks, everybody. I hope you got out and vote.
Thank you. Councillor Lauder.
Thank you. I just want to report that the Dairy Capital run was very successful, and they raised $44,000 this year. And a group of people from Woodingford Lodge did a roll and stroll, and they raised just $2,000, and they were really happy, and it was something that they could do. And it's the first time they've done it, and they want to do it again. They said they had lots of fun. And the golf tournament, I keep talking about the hospital golf tournament, which is on July the 25th, and it's the 20th anniversary. And so they're going to have a $20,000 hole-in-one this year. And also they're having a $1 million shootout for one lucky participant. So get out there and and get your team together. Yeah. So I attended the opening of the Science Center and the Toyota Trail, and so I brought the pens to show you that what they were handing out. And these were neat little pens because they have a picture of the trail on it, so I hadn't seen that before. The other thing that they talked about was ticks are very bad this year, and they have this little gadget, and it's probably good for anyone to have one of these. And I guess the tick, you pull it up, it goes in and they take it out this way at the end of the little gadget. And so it's very, they say that there's an awful lot of ticks this year. In fact, one person I've heard of already has had a tick this year. And I think that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Shapton.
Thank you, Worship. I too will be brief, as I would like to get home and see the election results. I know that this is always a Debbie Downer subject and a tough one for me to bring up once again, but we did lose another youth in our community to suicide this week. And I want to reinforce that there's no wrong number and there's no wrong door in this community. If you call 211 and you need to get help, you will get help. If you show up at a facility that maybe isn't the right one that can help you, they will guide you to get there. And if you're, it's okay not to be okay mentally, but it's not okay not to know where to go to get help. I've said that before, and I'll say it again. This community is here to help you, and I hope that those that need help are listening, because it's always tragic for me to see that we've lost another youth in our community. Also, June is ALS month, and you've heard me speak before about Jason Geertz, one of our officers who is off, who is suffering from this terrible disease. And we raised quite a lot of money last fall for Geertzy. And when something like this happens and you realize the devastating toll that this disease can take on a young body, well, young or old, it's quite tragic. But I know Geertzy is fighting hard, and if he's watching, which I can't imagine why he would be, but we're all pulling for you, and by no means, just because the event is over, has anyone stopped thinking about you. This everyone's still full support, and I can't tell you, I know you've been fighting hard, and that fight should continue. Also, that as we get closer to the end of school and the weather, well, it was improving, we're back to fall, but kids are getting a little excited, and they're out on the roads, they're on their bikes, so please be careful, slow down, take a minute to realize that if you get there a minute or two late, that's okay, as long as you get there safely. And with that, as all of us have received many phone calls with a slight amount of construction happening in our city, I did reach out to the city engineer and asked him to give just a little bit of update and information on timelines. I've received probably 30 or 40 calls, and I know the people in Norwich Ave area, you're struggling to get by there, but it will come to an end and it will be better. So with that, I will sign off, see you in a few weeks, and hand it over to Mr. DeHaan. Thank you.
Your Worship, through the Councillor, there's a number of city projects and county projects happening throughout the city right now. In terms of the city projects, currently Shenstone, which is impacted Huron Street a little bit. We have about 2 more weeks of work on that one. Asphalt resurfacing and surfacing carried over from last year is going on. Juliana was just finished the other day. Princess, Hayball, and Bennett still have to happen yet. They should be happening soon. And Northland is currently being done. In terms of city reconstruction projects, we still have Pavey and Vincent Street to happen. Pavey's anticipated to start in June, and September. Vincent Street probably in September. In terms of county projects, Norwich Parkinson, which the councillor mentioned, the county tells me that they are anticipating being done by the end of this month. Mill Street is a number of different projects, 3 or 4 different contracts all in total, and they're all finishing at certain stages. The work south of Park Row, between Park Row and to the south right now, it will probably be open next week. However, the area north of Park Row is starting right now, and that'll be into July. And then there's another section from Parkinson to Pembroke Pass that'll be taking place, and that probably won't be completed until August or September. Parkinson from Springbank to the east is also going to be resurfaced by the county, so that's into the industrial area out there. That'll probably be happening in June or July. And then there's some construction on Tecumseh also, what the county's doing. That'll probably be done in August also. So I think that's pretty much a highlight of the major ones. There were a number of other service connections lately that also impacted some of the major roads, like Ingersoll and Devonshire, but those were like 1 week, in order to facilitate some developments that were proposed.
Thank you. And I've come to that point where I know it's time for the haircut. So as Councillor Accioni mentioned already, I've been continuing to wear that daffodil so that people are aware. I will be getting my haircut during the opening ceremony. We'll have our community champion, Brian Don Levy, cut the first strand. He'll be guided by my longtime barber that my wife will be happy to have me start seeing on a regular basis again, who is also a cancer survivor. And then we will have many of the other survivors take turns cutting the locks, and there's still time to make donations to this great cause. With that, I would ask for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Shapton, seconded by Councillor Accioni. You've heard the motion. All in favor? We're adjourned.